Reviewing each season of Oz, it becomes more and more difficult for me to find things to talk about. Of course, usually in season reviews of TV shows, you talk about the story, but I like to keep it brief with plots, instead dedicating detailed time to them in individual videos, discussing characters and storylines. The reason why it can be difficult to talk about a new season of Oz is because so little has changed in terms of how the show is presented and how it goes about its business. I was conscious that during season 5's airing, The Sopranos was deep into its run, The Wire was kicking off, and a year later Deadwood would start, and here was Oz, very much a 90s show, with its hyperactive pace, partially serialized episodic storytelling, and weird background noises, still around in the early noughties. But Oz has its charm, even if things have become a bit weird and over the top. I did like season 5, but it's basically a hyper-violent soap opera by this point. Maybe it always was and I never noticed, but like all soaps, there are multiple storylines at play, some you like and are invested in, and some you could do without. Dr. Nathan's romance with O'Reilly, for instance, the man who had her husband murdered, was something I found eye-raising and silly. I thought Keller coming back was unnecessary. He and Beecher's storyline had a satisfactory ending in season 4, and it was a rare occasion where Oz showed restraint and ended a storyline without any of the involved characters being killed off, but now Keller's back and they've ruined it. The story of inmate Omer White, on the other hand, a guy I, like McManus and practically the whole of Emerald City found annoying, has a surprisingly interesting arc over the course of the season, and you find yourself rooting for him as he looks to better himself. By this point, you kind of know what you're going to get with Oz. Some good old prison violence, some drama, some death, some redemption, and happy endings dangled in front of your face until the rug is pulled from beneath you, and the cycle of grim nihilism repeats. And then the showrunners throw in some left-field things to shake things up, like some of the most violent prisoners in the entire penitentiary getting the task to train guide dogs for the visually impaired. But at times it feels self-defeating and pointless because more and more actions of characters in Oz seem to have less and less consequences and impact over the overall story. Like an inmate who is a priest is now out of the game, he is gone from the show. But the show introduces a new inmate who's also a priest, so what was the point? I know the two priests serve in different plots, but it's an example of a feeling of pointlessness that creeps up on you as the show goes on. New characters are introduced, only to be killed off, rinse and repeat. It feels like watching a gladiator tournament with the slaves being thrown to the lions. The exception tends to be the Oz staples, the guys like Schillinger, Beecher and Said. It's interesting story-wise that we've reached a stage where guys like Beecher and Said, who were newcomers to Oz in season 1, are now veterans. We're at a stage where guys like Beecher and Schillinger discuss the events of season 1 and the abuse Beecher went through in therapy sessions. 2 new young inmates arrive and will potentially become abused by Schillinger and his crew, which of course happened to Beecher, and it's interesting to see the dynamic between Beecher and the new inmates. On the other hand, sometimes it feels like Oz doesn't know what to do with some of the established characters. I wasn't the biggest fan of Said's descent into perpetual anger and rage, following on from his bizarre exclamations of "Adebisi lives" at the end of season 4 as he went on a shanking spree to protect Beecher. We've kind of seen Said battle with such internal demons before, and with him ending up pretty much rehabilitated by the end of season 5, it does kind of make you think, well, what was the point of his storyline this season, except to give him stuff to do? Remember what I said about the priest disappearing? Well, I mean just that. A priest inmate who suffers severe burns last season is in the hospital wing recovering, and he appears in the dreams and visions of those who are responsible for his suffering. Nothing wrong with that. Oz has always dabbled in surrealism. But for the priest to straight up disappear from his bed was tough to take, especially with how it causes shock and horror, but then everyone seems to forget about it as quickly as it happened. And a few other storylines here and there seem to come off as half-assed. One inmate has his entire arm cut off, and honestly, if you turned away from the screen for a few seconds a few times, you'd have missed it. Then there's the bit where a bus carrying visitors to Oz crashes and kills a whole bunch of people on board, relatives of Oz inmates. And you could have done a lot with this kind of storyline, but alas, not a lot is really done with it aside from Augustus. Speaking of Augustus, he spends time in hospital, and during this time, those scenes where he breaks the fourth wall and addresses the audience are replaced with balmy, ridiculous musical numbers. Like, what the hell is this supposed to be? How am I supposed to take the beef between Beecher and Stringer seriously when they're both boogieing together like this? And what was the point? What point is Oz trying to make with these numbers? They were so weird. What, were they brainstorming on what to do while Augustus was out of action, and someone high on tits decided watching the principal cast act as if they'd been dropped into a Disney musical was the best solution? Just so weird. I suppose in some ways it's Oz's way of letting you know it's in on the joke, and it knows and wants you not to take it too seriously. At least I hope that's what it's about. I found some of the storylines contrived, in the sense that things felt too obvious that they were being set up to kickstart a storyline. Like Ryan O'Reilly's mum coming to Oz to give music lessons to inmates. Like, that's straight up asking for trouble, isn't it? You know that O'Reilly's enemies, of which there are many, are going to use this situation to their advantage. There's other things too. Beecher decides to stop helping a new young inmate and lets Schillinger get his hands all over him. And then he feels guilty, so he goes to Sayid for help. Ignoring that we've almost literally had this exact same storyline in a previous season, Sayid says the issue came about because of Beecher's infatuation with Keller, so he says he must cut ties with him. This starts a small storyline with Beecher fighting the desire to go and see Keller and struggling with it. It's supposed to be a big thing because they haven't seen each other since the last season, and Beecher's been spending ages trying to get a face-to-face with him. But this whole Beecher fighting his desire and then succumbing to it all rests on Sayid's instructions not to see Keller. But when Beecher came to Sayid, Sayid could have said a great many different things. In fact, I thought he was going to tell Beecher to protect the boy again, to help him. But he says what he says for the sake of the plot, which is now what is truly running Oz, not the characters. So yeah, it's corny, it's weird, it's got a lot of plot holes, but it can be entertaining and captivating. I'm guessing Oz is better than watching 6 seasons of a hyper-realistic prison drama, where you'd be just watching guys shuffling around and playing cards with each other. As a character says at one point, it's Oz, there's always something going on.